Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast with the brand new, I'm just jumping right into it, BKFC, I can't even talk today, BKFC 34 middleweight champion, Dave Redneck Mundell. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing all right.
Man, it was really exciting. I'm just jumping right into it because the fact is, I've been to a bunch of your fights. We're going back to the RFC fights, the V361. I was at BKFC 6, 8, and 34. And then, this culminating with you winning the title. Like, how does it feel to be BKFC middleweight champion, after, the time that you've put into the sport?
It feels good, man. It feels real good. I definitely put a lot of time in. I worked really hard, so I felt like I deserved it. And I'm glad they finally gave me my shot, you know. And so we're just gonna ride it out from here.
And I know I'm going to bring this up because it's the only time I've ever seen this really where, they were doing the post-fight interview with you and talking about how big of a win it was for you over Ricci. But like, that's your friend. And I could tell you were kind of like, I really didn't want to do that. Like, I really didn't want it to happen that way. So like, what were the mixed emotions in that moment where you're like, your whole life, you're like, title, 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 you get it. And then you're like, oh shit. Like,
It's one of those things that we both had a job to do when we went in there. We both said it's all business. So we both wanted knockouts. It's how we farther our own careers. It's how we make ourselves look good. It's how we establish ourselves, how we make a statement. So um, I would have definitely preferred it to be against somebody different, but he had the target on him because he had the belt. So we just had to take care of business.
yeah. And it's an unfortunate thing when it comes to that because, you're in a sport where you're gonna fight friends. And I mean, you've found some, I don't want to call it incredible success, but I'm just gonna say you're undefeated in BKFC. I'm not even counting the Lombard fight because we all know. Come on,
Yeah.
we all know.
Yeah.
What do you think that resurgence came from? Because you spent a lot of time in MMA, you fought a lot of high level guys, and then you go into this BKFC and
I,
it's like,
I, I cracked that all up to just being like, when I did the first BKFC, I wasn't sure if I was going to stick around or not. But when I actually fought, like I really did. I fell in love with it. Like it just lit a whole new spark. So I'm taking training seriously again. I'm working my ass off. MMA. I got kind of, you know, complacent. I guess I don't know. I didn't. I wanted to fight because it's what I love to do, but I wasn't taking it as seriously. I was just doing my thing. I was having fun. But now I'm like, okay, here we go. This is something new all over again. The record restarted. I'm like, I want to be undefeated. Got really sour about the fight with
sorry,
Hector.
I'm sorry.
It happened, and we can move past it. But here I am now. I got the 75-pound belt, and I'm happy with that.
Well, and absolutely. And you have to understand, like, that was your third fight and you were main eventing on the BKFC. So going from the first one where you're like, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore to, headlining the card and fighting a guy like Hector Lombard who's fought anybody. And I mean, you made him look bad. I've watched it a few times and I know it's a sour note and I know everybody brings it up, but
No, it's
um,
okay. It doesn't bother me because I mean, mostly everybody I've ever talked to about it always says I won that fight, and I do believe in my heart that I won that fight too. I feel like there was a bit of politics involved with giving him the win, but it's what it is, and I learned a lot from it. One, I learned it was important to train to be able to fight with one hand. The very first exchange, I broke my hand, so I learned that way, and I also kind of better figured out the sport in a way. Like they don't care if you're the better boxer and you just outbox somebody. They want to see you engage. They want to see you go forward. They want to see you initiate. And so we took it and we learned from it and we move on.
and I think that's the most important thing. And I've beat it into the ground. But as a fighter, like you learn so much more from a loss than a win. And it's almost like when it's a sour loss, you're like, now I'm even more motivated to come back. And at the end of the day, you've got the belt and he does not. So I mean, I guess it worked out for the best for everybody.
Everything happens for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. And so, you kind of talked about, almost like losing that love for MMA and having to refine it with BKFC. So, start from the beginning. Like, what got you into, martial arts to begin with? Was it, fights in school? Was it just,
Um,
I already called you out. He's like, oh crap.
I mean, I did stand up for myself quite a bit in high school. But I guess really it's when I started wrestling as a senior. I came in the season about halfway, and like again, I guess that's considered combat sports as well. I just fell in love, and not only that, but the teammates behind you as a wrestling team, that your brothers. It was something I never really experienced before, and it really set the tone for everything. So after the season was over, I only had half the season, and I wanted to continue, and I did some other tournaments outside of high school. Just I don't even know what they're called, but just wrestling tournaments, and I was pretty much just mowing everybody over because I didn't go to college to wrestle in college, which I should have, but I made my decision, and so I wanted to do something that was more challenging. That led into jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu led into striking. That led into fighting, and all the way to where I'm at today.
And I mean, it's an interesting journey to go start the wrestling to jujitsu to fighting. Usually the fighting, then you incorporate the jujitsu. And now I don't want to say it's useless, but the jujitsu doesn't really help you as much in the bare knuckle. I think maybe with the clinch, like maybe you could incorporate it somehow, but definitely not the way you want to.
Well, put it this way, I am a black belt, but ever since I started BKFC, I've pretty much haven't really done much jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'll mess around with some friends every now and then outside of camps, but when I'm at camp, I'm just all boxing.
Yeah.
So I don't think it helps me much in BKFC at all. But wrestling, on the other hand, I feel like a lot of my footwork, a lot of my movements helped. It just kind of helped build my base, especially with I stand southpaw, but I'm right-handed, and it comes from wrestling because you stand with your strong leg forward, where you stand with your strong hand back. So wrestling kind of helped out here where I'm at now, but obviously I don't
I was
wrestle.
gonna say that gives you a decided advantage because everybody is expecting your, like you said, the arm back and you're fighting differently. So it's really changing things. And I mean, the more I look at you, I'm still amazed that you fought like 10 days ago and you barely look like you had a scratch on you.
I
Uh,
I think I still got a little
little bit.
one here. The stitches are out. I'm good there, but he gave me some. I think it's called TMJ. He hit me in the side of my head somewhere. I don't know. It's hard to open my mouth now. It
Oh, like
doesn't.
lockjaw. Oh, jeez.
Oh yeah, it was weird, but he definitely has some power in his hands too. So
Well, and going right back into that, I mean, watching the first round, getting the knockdown, it was like you could tell in the arena, like the shift. You could tell that people were like, "Oh, this is going to be a fight." And it's not to say that they were, counting you out, but a lot of the times they'll see the champion, and then in round two he comes back and kind of starts to build back up again.
yeah,
And I feel like after that second round, you were like, "Not again, not happening again." And I will say it was one of the scarier knockouts I've ever seen.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
was it was a very clean setup, and it was in the moment. I was excited, and then I looked over and seen he was still laying there. I'm just like, that wasn't a good feeling. It kind of twisted things up on me a little bit, but he
yeah,
got
and
good. I'm good. We've talked since. We're good. So that's all that matters.
that was actually going to be my next question. Like, had you talked to, like, obviously you guys are friends, like, without going into details, because that's your personal conversation. But like, what was that conversation like? Like, was it just like, sorry, dude? Like, it's just
Actually, right after the fight, when we were in the back, we both went to go get stitched up and stuff. And my first question to him, well, not my first question. We talked a little bit and made sure everything was good. My first question was like, I asked him, how he trained to fight me. Like, what did he see, and what did he try to, what did he try to do to beat me? Because I want to know. I want to know what other people think and what they're gonna, attack. So I can learn to get better at that. And we just exchanged, some stuff like that. And and it was all good.
See, now that's why I love this sport. Because there's no other sport like football teams afterwards aren't going to be like, "Hey, how'd you guys beat us? Like, how did you do that?" And I think one of the examples to pull from recent, conversations, the whole, um, Jan Blachowicz fight over the weekend, where they're like, "Oh, it's a draw," and then they're like, "Hey, next card, we're gonna have Jamal Hill and Glover Teixeira fight for the title." And Anthony Smith is on the desk, and he's like, "I was fighting Jamal Hill," and you could tell he was like, "This is awkward." And I'm like, they're focusing on him, and I know Jamal talked, and they said him and Anthony talked. They went from about to fight each other to, "Hey, can you help me prepare for this fight?" Like, that shit never happens. That's never going to happen anywhere else. So I really love that you guys kind of got to, I didn't doubt that there wouldn't be any ill will. It's like you said, you guys both, you end up in the same division. You're going to fight each other, and he had the target on his back by having that title. So now switching it around, I'm not asking you who you want to fight, but what's it like to have the target on your back? Like, is it a different mindset, or you just?
I mean, no, not really. I've always actually had a problem finding fights. I'm willing to fight anybody as long as it makes sense money wise. If I'm going to be into an actual brawl, I want to get paid for it. And if I'm just going to be a lesser opponent, then I understand. But now, being that I have the title, it should all be good fights, and I don't think there's anybody else on the BKFC roster that can stop me right now. And honestly, even if they brought people in, I don't know who they could find that I wouldn't be able to stop.
Yeah. And of course, I can't be the first person to bring this up, but there's one guy. I'm not even going to say his name. We're going to see if we're talking about the same person.
Mike Perry.
Yeah.
I would love to. Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, a little bit about our history. We fought once as an amateur and then once as a pro. Obviously, he beat me both times, but on the end of the first rounds, both fights almost identical to each other. I put him down, and he was literally saved by the bell. I literally got tired from beating him up. Honestly, that's what happened. He was like a Nate Diaz. I'd drop him, and he would get back up like nothing happened, and it just over and over again. And it was crazy. But I feel like I've also matured a lot more of a fighter as a fighter, and I focus on conditioning. I know that it's way more important. I'm not as lazy, So I definitely think if we were to fight again, I would finish the fight, and I wouldn't have any problem.
And I hate to be that guy, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I was there for the amateur one. So I'm like, I've seen like this history that's going on. And I remember when I saw the two of you in BKFC, I was like, man, I want to see that fight again. Like, because you guys aren't the same people you were 5 years ago, 8 years ago, however long it was. I mean, that was a long time ago. Like, let's look at this. Yeah, 2013. And then 2016. So again, we're looking at 6 years. You guys are in completely different sports. You're in completely different places in your life. You've had ups and downs, and it's like right now you're riding the high. Like, you're the guy with the belt. And one thing I heard somebody else ask you, and I won't say who it was because I'm being respectful to them, but they were asking you about challenging Lorenzo Hunt and challenging other people in other weight classes. Like,
I'm all for it again if it makes sense, but right now, like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know how it all works. I know he was able to fight for the 205-pound belt, and he apparently still holds the 85, didn't have to vacate it, whatever. I have no problem with being the double champ. The only reason why I'm not the 85-pound champ right now is because all my teammates are at 85, and my boy Jared Warren is right now on next in line for that title. So it's definitely hard to fight a friend. I'm sure, so I'm not going to be fighting a teammate. So I'm going to stick with the 75-pound belt, and he's going to take 85, and we're going to ride out from there.
See, and I respect that a lot because, you fought heavier. You fought, seems to be like the weight class that's perfect for you. These half-pound increments change everything. They really do. And I really have to respect that because like you said, a friend, okay, we had to fight, but a teammate, absolutely not. And for you, I'd rather have 75 and 85 pound belts on two people versus one guy. And,
Yeah, and it's just like in that way too. I know people get a little pissy with, I want to fight him at 75, but he's over there fighting at 85. He shouldn't have the belt. And then you got these interim belts showing up and yada, yada, yada. I do plan on staying active. I'd like to get a minimum of 3 fights in a year, which I think is fair, is every 4 months. I would even do more as long as my body will let me, but I'm happy right now sitting at the 75-pound weight class. I don't think anyone there is going to mess with me. And he's going to get that 85-pound belt, and
just gonna run the gamut. Yeah, it's our house. And I mean, you pulled off 4 fights within I don't want to say a calendar year, but within 12 months, just about.
I think December 9th.
Yeah.
I forgot his name last night too.
Stanislav Grosu.
Yeah. Grosu, yeah. And then here we go, December 3rd, getting the belt. So within 1 year, I had 4 fights.
Yeah, and I mean those all came after the Hector fight. It's all right. I feel better that you had the cough now because I had to cough too. Like this, I don't know, man. I think we picked up something from
all the fun from the couple weekends ago caught up.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know. The whole family's down right now.
Yeah, dude. Trust me. I know we rescheduled, and I appreciate that too. But it sounded like you were in the same boat I was, and usually I'm sick for like 4 days, and then it goes away, and I'm like, all right, cool. I can go back to doing jujitsu. I can go back to like living my life. No, not this thing. So whatever it is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave's hands are a lot scarier than mine, but
we took the kids to the doctors. And they said they just thought it was the flu. We didn't get necessarily tested for it at that point. It's nothing they could have done if we knew or not anyway. So
yeah,
thinking it was, we got the flu. So here we are.
Yeah, mine was bronchitis, so that was a new one. They handed me an inhaler, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I don't know what to do with this. They're like, well, we're not going to do anything for your cough, but here's a bunch of other stuff. And I'm like, I learned real quick how steroids work. Let's just say that. Because, man, that was some energy. So we've talked about Dave, the MMA fighter. We've talked about Dave, the BKFC fighter, the BKFC champion. But let's talk about home life. Like, let's talk about Dave, the husband, the dad. So what's it like, balancing all that with training and everything else? Because, you got a lot of work, riding on that.
I got a beautiful wife that helps me out with everything. She claims to be my permanent babysitter.
She's tough. Even there now. I've heard her. It's okay.
She walked away for the moment, but I'm sure. So it'd be like in the mornings that I had to get up super early to go for runs because I had a lot of weight to cut and I had to make sure I was getting the road work in. I'd come back, she'd have my breakfast cooked and stuff like that. So she's always playing a huge part in my camps, making sure that I'm fed well, staying on, whooping my ass, telling me to get back at the gym, stop being a bitch. But the kids,
that's a woman right there to tell you that.
The kids are a handful, they're kids, man. They're just, everyone who has kids understands.
I mean, are they the younger kids? Like we're dealing with smaller
8.
kids, or 8 and what?
13.
Holy cow, man! Yeah,
punch in the head. The other one that just annoys the hell out of me.
I mean, that sounds about right.
That's not nice. She's in there yelling at me now.
It's the truth. We talk the truth on this show. Like, this is what we do here. Like, so, kind of walk me through like a day to day. Like you said, the wife's there. I'm going to use your terminology, and I hope she can hear me now. Making sure you're not a bitch. But like, walk me through like, what's an on camp look like for you? What's off camp now? Do you get to really relax, or is it?
During camps, no, man, it's balls to the wall. I get probably like anywhere between 5 or 6, depending on what my morning schedule is like. To go whether I'm hitting the gym or doing road work. Then I got to go to work full time. I get off. I go straight to the gym. I do whatever I can with my personal trainer, Nick Reed's Chiseled Ink as well. And he just puts me through whatever his system is at that time. He always has stuff prepared for me. Right after that, straight to training. Right from training, straight home. And then everything in between is just trying to find the right times to eat, because the schedule is crazy, and getting the right nutrients in. And then we go to bed, wake up, and do it again.
Dude, that's got to be crazy. And it's still strange to hear, a champion of a fighting organization, we're just going to say, having the full-time job. So like,
if I didn't have a full-time job, I would smoke everybody. There would be no chance for them. I do all this with as much stuff that I have in front of me on my plate, and it's a struggle now, but I still make it look easy in there. I could only imagine what I could do if I could actually just tone down and focus on the camp like full time with no concerns. Maybe even be able to, travel a week or two out of the camps to go get specific sparring partners in. I pull who I can, and luckily around here, and we're in Florida, we have a great pool of people to pick from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I would be a completely different monster. I really, really would be untouchable at that point.
So it's safe to say you'd be a completely different redneck. Like, I couldn't resist, but that's scary to me. Like, that's scary that like you've achieved the status of champion while working full time, while having the family, and that you are even saying like, if I didn't have that, I'd be even scarier. Like, that's terrifying.
It's
That
just,
really is.
how it is that work in itself is so mentally draining, and it's not like it's a desk job. I'm an electrician, so I'm crawling around in the attic. Sometimes we gotta dig a ditch to lay pipe, whatever it is, pulling wire. Like, it's a physically demanding job on top of everything else that I do, and I have to I have the time, but I have to like force myself to go to the gym. Once I get in there, it sometimes after work, after having a hard day at work, it's so hard to like just go to a bag or just a shadow box. I tell my coach, like, I just need someone to just move around and spar with. I need someone to try to punch me to make me move right now. Otherwise, I'm going to be lazy. I need to be forced. I need someone cracking the whip. So that's just, I don't know, if I could take all the time to actually sit down and run through the drills the correct way and put the time in that I know that I need. I don't know.
I don't know, man. And
I
hope you do
maybe
what?
65.
I'm sorry. Did you do 65?
I'll take 65, 75, and 85.
As long as you defend him at least once, you're still better than Conor McGregor. Sorry. I don't even say his name because I'm like, I don't want to give him any more credit, but they're like, oh, first double champ.
I love Conor. Like,
what?
I know why people hate on him, but I just, he every fighter's dream is to accomplish what he has accomplished. Whether or not they want to act the way he does is different. I get it. Like, nobody likes his antics, but I mean, he's got some money now. That's what we all want.
That's true.
He's got recognition for a reason. He put himself out there. He talked his game and he backed it up for the longest time. I'm a fan.
I knew that was coming. I was like, I can't argue with the logic. It's just how he carried himself and how like they made it seem like he was the only thing in the sport.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I can't bring myself to do that. And I feel like is also a huge reason on why I struggle to get bigger. Is because I don't put myself out there enough. I don't go to the weigh-ins, talk shit, push people, headbutt them, get in their face. I'm there to do my job, and before and after we're good. During, that's when we're gonna fight, and that's all that needs to be done in my eyes. But
and that's how it really should be. Like, you shouldn't have incidents, the Jeremy Stevens one, Drakkar Close, where he like shoved him, and he ended up with like some sort of like neurological spinal issue, like some crazy thing happened from a weigh-in push. And I'm like, why? Why would you risk everything
Yeah.
to just be like, meh? So, I'm going to bring something up that maybe nobody's brought up, and it's not a reflection on you or anything else, but like a fight did break out during your fight.
I know. I hear so much about this. I want to know what it's from, though. No one's giving me details. I don't know what happened.
So that was going to be my question. Like, did you guys even see what was going? Because I mean, obviously you're focused in there, but I know half the people were all like, "What?" I think it was around the second round. Like, it was about 24 people in a collective area who just decided, you know what?
Got taken out on a stretcher and all kinds of stuff, man. That was crazy, and it was none of my fans because none of my personal fans. Because I don't know what happened. Nobody knew what happened. So if it was somebody that was involved with me, I would know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I heard it was some crazy shit. I seen like some after videos of you can't really tell what's going on, but there was quite a few people.
You can't, but it's like we made it through almost the whole night with like no incident, and then it was just like, oh, let's just throw all this shit on at once. Like, let's just do. And I remember I'm taking pictures of the fight, and I'm like, all of a sudden I just hear yelling, and I'm like, no, go back to the fight, go back to the fight. It's like, I want to see what's going on.
World.
It was crazy, and it's sad that we still have things like that. But if you watch hockey games, dude, these hockey videos that come out, like, there's dozens of people getting into fights, and I'm like, what are you doing? I understand, like, you're in the moment. I was like, but the only two people who should be fighting are in the squared circle over there. Like, that's it. Like, just let them go. So I had to bring that up, but you already knew about it. But it was funny because it was like, I just thought at one point it would have been kind of funny if both of you stopped fighting and looked over like really? Like, we're doing this now? So, we've talked about the transition into BKFC, like, but what was that initial call? Like, what was it like for you to say, this is what I want to do? I know you said after the first fight, you said, I really love this. Like, what was the conversation you had with BKFC that said, this is my home?
Never really with them, honestly. They just keep asking me, hey, Dave, you want to fight this guy? I'm like, let's do it. Hey, Dave, you want to fight this guy? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I'm just, I don't have like a contract with them or anything. They just ask me, hey, you want to fight this guy? And I'm like, let's run it. And I just don't turn it on. I just show up.
I mean, that's kind of crazy, but I love it because that's the people they need. And for years, like Bellator, did so much work to like build up their own guys. Like, hey, let's build up these guys. And then they just started bringing in all the old UFC guys and doing that. And Bare-Knuckle's done it recently with a couple guys and a couple girls who didn't pan out at all, who are already barely.
I mean, we talked about this in another interview, and it's like, of course, I want to be, front and center. I want them to be promoting me more than anybody else, and I also want to be making more money than any of these other people. But we need bigger names coming in, gets us more recognition. It's part of the reason why they're growing faster. They're doing it smart, and I feel like they've done their fair share for me. They've given me my chances, they've given me my shots, and we just got to pull through with them. And so far, I've been doing that, and I'm looking forward to see what comes now. What's to come now, So I'm hoping they treat me right.
I really think they will, because I feel like you're in a constant like trial period where they're just like, all right, we're not going to hire you. We're not saying you don't work here, but let's see what you do with this. And then, the way you carry yourself, like you said, you're not over the top. I would say you're confident, not bordering arrogant, because even then, like, you knew what you had to do in that fight to win. And it's funny because I'm going to pull this up right now because I'm reading this and I don't believe it, but on Tapology, they have your knockout as a left hand. And it was the left hand. Okay. I was like, hold on a second.
Yep.
I had to make sure that I was like, that didn't look right. But I see what you're saying, and I understand the benefit of bringing these guys in, and I hope that they continue to bring the people in who make sense in the sport.
Yeah.
Right now you see a lot of talk about Nate Diaz, Eddie Alvarez. Like,
That's a fight I would love, man. Me and Nate Diaz, I grew up watching actually his brother more than him, but then him after his brother kind of got kicked out for a little bit. But I just know he comes to brawl, but I don't think he's that good. I'm like, I know he's just tough as shit too, and I'm like, let's go, let's do it.
all right, so if I had to give you get a wish list. 3 guys you want to fight. Obviously, Nate's probably on that list. Mike Perry's probably on that list. Who else? Who else makes that top 3?
I know he fights in a smaller weight class, but Chad Mendez, I don't know why.
I love that fight.
He's got so much, he's I don't know. I think he's another one. He's so many people think he's so great and like he's just athletic. I get it. It's probably juiced out of his mind, but I just feel like I'd beat him up.
Man, throwing the blows. You're acting like you're a bare-knuckle fighting champion. Like, I don't know, man. I love it because first of all, I hate hypothetical fights, but in this case, like, Nate's a possibility.
Yeah.
Perry's a possibility. Like, those are legitimate fights
that
could happen.
His dad, he walks around. I'm sure he walks around pretty doggy. Maybe he'll just be like, I ain't got to cut weight for a fight. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love about it, because it's not like you're like calling out John Jones or, somebody else like ridiculous.
Now, just people that I know that like only people I was only picking out of people that were in or talked about by the BKFC. I think they were just talking to it was Nate Diaz and what was the other? Conor McGregor knocked him out too.
Eddie Alvarez.
Eddie Alvarez. I'd fight him too. Give me all of them.
I love that fight too.
I would starch him. He wouldn't be able to touch me. He'd be fighting Conor all over again, and he'd be right at the end of my punches.
Like, what year is this again? And it's no disrespect to Eddie, but it's like you see, fighting is not a sport that has a longevity attached to it. But and people see the bare knuckle brutality. I know one of the guys the same night of your fight, like, had a tooth in his hand from the other guy. And I was like, that's brutal. But guess what? A week later, he looks fine. So I'm like, you guys are getting punched in the head. You're doing way more damage to your hands.
Yes, the hands are definitely what takes the front of everything,
You're not taking head kick. You're not getting kneed in the face. Like, you're not taking any of those shots that really accelerate the decline of your career. And I think that's the craziest thing about it, because I've said it once, I'll say it again. Hearing a skull get hit by a fist the first night, that BKFC 6, and I heard that, I was like, that is the worst sound I've heard in my life. And I was like, all right, next fight, let's go. Like, give me the next one. Give me the next one. And sure enough, I've really come to love this sport because it is safer. And that sounds weird. And somebody will call me out on it.
They always do. Everyone is an expert, But I mean, taking it from a fighter, I feel it's easier to get ready for them, less taxing on the body. The fight itself is just as intense. And then after, like I said, the worst part about everything is our hands. But I have a great sponsor now, Catalyst Physical Therapy, and they have a magic tool that they use on me and my hands, and they get. So I remember when I first fought it took almost maybe 3 months to be able to have impact on my knuckles again. I go to these guys in the first couple of weeks. I'm hitting the pads and I'm moving, working myself up to the body bag, and then sparring within a month. It's great, So I found a little secret weapon there too. So I'm happy with that.
You kind of have to.
Yeah.
You have to fight. You can't just go through the normal things of rest and this and that. You've got to work. I can't imagine how difficult it is to work after fighting.
I went right back Monday.
No, you didn't.
The only reason why I had Thursday, Friday off is because I was sick. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was right back to reality. Felt like Joe Schmo all over again.
Question: did you bring the belt to work?
Nah.
I could just imagine you kind of doing that and be like, "Yeah, I got a new tool belt. It's gold."
I've had all kinds of crazy comments and questions like that. Somebody told me I should put it on my Christmas tree and bring it. Everyone wants me to bring it and take pictures with them and stuff, which I'll get around to doing it. But
you're 10 days like into being a champion. Like, give you some time. And that's the other thing. Like, they do the post fight interview. I get that, but it's like in those moments, there's like after a BKFC fight, like do the interview later. Like, do a scrum. Give you some time to like come off that high and relax a little bit. Because my favorite things about Bare-Knuckle, people trying to fist bump you guys after the fight.
or shake your hand. I'm okay with the fist bump because I'll just come up and just give him an elbow instead. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And I told it was the first night when I watched the Tom Schaff Julian Lane fight, and I'm watching people go up and they're like, "Great fight, guys!" and they're holding up the fist, and Julian and Tom just looked at him like no, like that's not gonna work. So, talking about that, you have that incredible knockout, and then you have the Palomino Schaff fight. Like, did you actually get to watch that fight at all, or were you in the back getting stitched up?
I was in the back getting stitched up. They did have a TV, but I only got parts of it between all the tests and questions and all the other stuff they make us do after the fights for the fighter safety, So, I got to see little bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, I figured as much. And I was like, the cut on Tom was bad. Like, I hate that they stopped it the way they did, but he's even come out and said, like, if they didn't stop it, I probably wouldn't have an eye. Like, that's the scary part of the sport. And it's part of the sport. Like, it's gonna happen.
I'm not a doctor by any means, so I don't know how deep a cut would have to be or where exactly the laceration would have to be to lose an eye. But if the doctor says it's gotta be done, it's gotta be done. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's again, it's part of the sport. And like you said, in that moment, you're just trying to be like, I just won the belt. I'm excited. So you brought up like the questions they ask you for fighter safety. Like, what's the weirdest question they ask you? Like, is there any like off the wall question where you're like, what?
No, they have like this concussion test. We just got to read numbers from left to right, and then the lines disappear, and we got to keep doing it. And it's just basically the way the eyes and motor functions and all that stuff. I don't know. They explain it all back there, and I'm just like, all right, I'll just do it.
Like whatever. Like, I just won. Like, so part of the celebration. Like, what was the first thing you did after you got stitched up, was ready to go and leave? Like, did you have like an after party? Did you just go relax and be like, I don't want to see anybody?
So it's still in the Hard Rock, but out of the venue itself, and everybody, I felt like half the stadium was there waiting for me to come out. As soon as I walked out, everyone's like cheering for me, clapping. Everyone wants pictures and stuff. That was pretty cool. That's that was different than most fights, especially being out of town. It's you don't. I'm not used to having support like that, especially in Miami. I go places like that usually. Not so much for me, but I know damn well if you come here to Tampa to fight me, you're getting booed. Ain't no one cheering for you,
Yeah. No one's gonna cheer because they're like looking around like,
And now it's me, and it just blows up. That's the best feeling in the world. So coming out and having all that support, and even like when they were introducing me in the fight, having all that support was really cool. But going back to the original question, so after I walked out, we said hello, we got all the pictures with everybody. I had to get my kids back to the room, and then from there we just hung out at some of the bars, and some of my hometown friends came met us up, and I don't even know what the club is called, and I'm not a club person at all, but we went to somewhere that was inside the Hard Rock, and I remember
I saw like the rave thing that was like on the roof, like
dressed appropriately, but the one of my ninjas got us in anyway. Bought some bottles and we partied, and it was a great time.
Did you have the cowboy hat on? Did they
I
let
did.
you wear that in?
I did.
Were you the only guy with a cowboy hat? Because I think you probably no.
Oh, my people were there.
Oh my god,
Oh.
that's even better.
Wore a cowboy hat that night. That's crazy.
it's so funny because like talking to you, like so many fighters get the belt and they immediately change. It's like when somebody gets promoted to like a supervisor and they change completely like who they are and how they carry themselves. And I feel like, the years that I've seen you fight, you haven't changed. I was gonna share a picture one of these days. I'll figure out how to do it. But I have a picture that I took cage side, and you're just on top of the other guy, like you had taken him down, and you could tell you were just like, I'm bored. Like you could just tell, like you were just like, I'm not, this isn't fame and glory, but you have the title now. You have the target on your back, and you haven't changed. Not a bit. You've still got to support the family, still got to go to work. The fact that you went to work that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday blows my mind. Just blows my mind because, you know, the fighting dream was never, hey, you're gonna have a full-time job and fight. Like
I
no,
know I was supposed to fight, so I had all this time to go fishing and hanging out and doing all the other dumb shit I like to do. But reality kicks in, and it is what
so,
it is.
so when you're not working, you're not fighting, you're not training. What are the fun activities? Like you said, fishing and things like that. Like what are the things you like to do? Like if you had a whole week to do whatever you wanted, what are you doing with that time?
Fishing, maybe riding the quads or the dirt bikes, stuff like that. Just
So
hanging out.
you're just living up to that redneck name. Like just really like I mean, you even came on like not Dave Mundell, not champion, redneck Mundell. Like that's you. Like down to earth, just I love it. And I've got to say it was really an honor to see you get to win that belt because again, being a Tampa native, being at those RFC fights, the V3 fights, like being at all those and kind of watching the progression, like, you know, I've seen guys, Mike Perry, Alex Nicholson, like all these guys that have made their way up to the UFC, and you got Phil Rowe and all these other guys, and you see, and they're all people. Oh, you're laughing now. Uh-oh.
Phil, no, I love Phil. Phil had a dominant win December 3rd too. It's kind of funny. He fought Nico, which is also somebody I like as well. So it's one of those fights where you're like, man, I don't know who to root for, but I've trained with Phil way back in the day quite a bit, and he's all the way out there in Orlando. So he did. I heard he did an awesome job. I haven't got a chance to catch the fight. I just seen the finish. So
Oh yeah, that's all you need to watch because that was the best part of the fight. That definitely, like you just saw him pouring it on and feeling the fuel from that crowd. And like you said, I think next, your title defense first one needs to be in Tampa because there were definitely a lot of people cheering for Ricci down there in South Florida. And I think a Tampa thing would obviously sell out. But number two, it would just be like kind of like a comeuppance for you and like
BKFC likes money too, right? And that's the move to make. Come to Tampa, I'm bringing everybody.
yeah, and they've really poured it on Tampa, Lakeland. Like they put a lot of stock into Florida, whereas like for years the UFC would do like one event maybe every few years, and it really took it to the pandemic to really start doing like consistent events in Florida, especially in Orlando. So I say BKFC in Tampa, your first title defense, whoever they put in front of you. Now I'll just save the time for, take the time to tell us about the sponsors, the people who got you through every camp and who you want to thank now that you haven't been punched 5 minutes prior. Maybe a little bit easier to remember stuff.
We got Fitness 360 at the gym I go to lift weights and meet up with my Chisel Inc., who's my trainer's company. I got Outlaw Customs, Legendary Tattoos, Quality Rare Coins, Fence Factory. That's the Bay Area Fence Factory out of Safety Harbor. Florida Alternative Medicines and Bodie Chiropractics. And of course, we got Team Reaper and the newest sponsors, Condemned Labs, who gave me all the supplements I needed to get through this and help me lose all the weight. And while I was starving, they just making sure I stayed fueled to get through the days.
Well, absolutely. And, talking about you've got the black belt. Don't ever use it and again, I don't want to say you don't ever use it again, but you don't get to, use it as much. But hearing the Team Reaper, knowing, those people and what that means, like it's really cool that they're still an active part of your career, even though jujitsu isn't as much.
I was Team Reaper's very first sponsored fighter back when it was. You know,
Jeez, that's right.
who owns the company or owns it all. I've been with him since the beginning, you know, so I don't think he's ever going anywhere. It's like Fitness 360, Outlaw Customs, and Bodie Chiropractics, and Legendary Tattoos. They've all been with me, you know, since the beginning of my pro career too, you know, and so that it's really cool to see like the support from them in every single fight. There's no question. I'm like, hey, I'm fighting. They're like, cool. What do you need? You know, we got you. Same as last time. Yeah, perfect. You know,
And it's amazing because you're driving everything local. You know, me knowing that I don't, you know, I live 2 towns over from you. It's not a surprise that we don't live that far. So I know all these people, like I know all these sponsors, and it's amazing to see the local support. So not only do I thank them for doing that for you, but I thank you for doing that for them, and you know, sticking with it, because these are people who have been there through 14 fights. I think 14 fights MMA, and now we're going on 7 bare knuckle fights. Am I
11 and 5 in MMA? I think 11 and 5, and then
it depends on what tapology you look at, what day. 10 and 4, 11 and 5. I like 11 and 5 better. Maybe 11 and 4. Let's meet in the middle.
I'm gonna go with that. Maybe it's 10 and 5. I don't know, but it's I know it's over. I got over 30 fights, and I think I got over 20 pro fights. So,
and the fact is, like, you're 31. Like, you're not, you know, these guys that are like 42. Like BKFC has some older guys fighting. You know that, and you're seeing a lot. Like, you've got years ahead of you in this, where you're way ahead of the game. You had all the MMA fights early. I mean, I could see you doing this for another 10 years. I don't know if you want to do it for another 10, but I'm just saying, like,
a ton of money at that point.
yeah, right. Make a ton. So, you know, on behalf of ourselves, so La Barba Cubana, amazing beard care stuff. Fat Boy Jiu Jitsu, which I'm sure you've seen out of Orlando, or at least that area, makes some really cool stuff. Tim makes knives on Instagram. Bertzo's Bake Shop makes amazing baked goods in Orlando. So if you're ever over there, let me know. I'll reach out to them and see if we can't hook something up. And then, of course, the newest sponsor that we have going is Tales of a Concert Junkie. You can go to their Instagram. They make all kinds of shirts about mental health, about concerts, some politics shirts that are interesting, we'll just say. They make some country music ones too, so I think Redneck might be interested. So maybe we'll talk and see if we can't get you hooked up with some stuff. Use promo code Quiggin Out, you get 15% off your order. So, you know, on behalf of myself, Combat Press, and really getting to watch a native achieve that title is probably one of the greatest things, not only as a fan, as a spectator, as a journalist, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's really exciting to see you put in that work and get your, you know, get your dues and get to hear the words live. New BKFC middleweight champion, David Redneck Mundell. So, hey guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe, little bell, great night. Keep you up to date on all things.
Thanks again, sir.